The desert sun was burning high above the endless sands, and Armin wiped the sweat from his forehead as he adjusted the strap of his leather bag. He had been walking for hours with only the sound of his boots pressing into the sand and the dry wind brushing against his ears. His fellow archaeologists had left the site earlier in frustration, saying there was nothing more to be found in these ruins. But Armin did not give up so easily. He believed that the sands of Egypt still held secrets no one had uncovered. Armin had grown up listening to stories about Cleopatra, the last queen of Egypt, and the mysterious riches she was said to have hidden from her enemies. Every historian wrote about her charm and political skill, but Armin believed the stories of her lost treasures were not just legends. He believed there was truth buried deep beneath the sand, waiting for the right person to discover it. As he entered a half-buried chamber, broken pillars and faded paintings caught his eye. The air inside was cooler, heavy with the smell of earth and stone that had not seen light for centuries. He pulled out his lantern and lit it, casting a warm glow on the walls. His heart jumped when he saw unusual carvings etched into the stone. These were not like the traditional hieroglyphs he had studied since his student days. Instead, they looked sharper, almost mechanical, as though they had been cut by tools more advanced than anything from ancient Egypt. Armin ran his fingers lightly over the markings, feeling their depth and precision. He pulled out his notebook and quickly sketched what he saw, his hands moving fast, afraid that even a moment of delay might erase the chance to record something extraordinary. As he traced the symbols, he realized something strange. These markings seemed to form patterns, not just words. They looked like maps, diagrams, and even equations. The chamber led him further down, where sand had covered half the doorway. He pushed and dug with his hands until he was able to squeeze through. His lantern flickered, and for a brief moment, darkness swallowed him. When the flame steadied again, Armin gasped. Before him stood a massive stone door unlike anything he had ever seen in the tombs of Egypt. It was smooth, polished, and gleamed faintly as though it had been untouched by time. At the center was a round lock shaped like a star, and around it were more of those strange symbols. What made his heart race even more was the faint humming sound that came from the door. It was low, almost like the deep note of a hidden instrument, but it was steady. He placed his hand on the surface. The stone felt warm. It was impossible. How could a door buried for centuries feel alive? He quickly pulled his hand back, his mind racing with possibilities. Was this really part of Cleopatra's lost treasure? If so, why did it look nothing like the gold and jewels described in legends? Armin took a deep breath and sat down on a rock near the entrance of the chamber. He pulled out an old book that had been passed down from his grandfather. Inside were notes written in faded ink about ancient rumors. His grandfather had believed Cleopatra had secrets that were not meant for her time. Some said she had knowledge that came from the stars, knowledge that enemies never discovered. Armin had always thought those were just tales, but now he was not so sure. The longer he stared at the door, the more certain he became that this was not a normal tomb. This was something greater, something hidden not just from the enemies of Cleopatra but from the world itself. He thought of the historians who doubted him, the treasure hunters who only wanted gold, and his fellow archaeologists who laughed at his theories. None of them would believe what he was seeing now. Armin touched the strange star-shaped lock again and noticed small grooves, as though a key was meant to fit into it. But not just any key. This was not shaped for a normal object. It was designed for something special. He leaned back and tried to calm his racing thoughts. He knew one thing for certain. Cleopatra had hidden more than treasure. She had hidden something powerful. This vault was not made to keep riches safe. It was made to guard knowledge. As the lantern's light danced against the carvings, Armin felt a chill run down his spine. He knew his discovery would change everything. The sand above had kept it secret for thousands of years, but now the responsibility was in his hands. He did not yet know what was waiting behind the sealed door, but one truth echoed in his mind. Cleopatra's gold was not just wealth. It was a message from the past, and maybe from the stars themselves. And he, Armin, was the one who had finally found it. Armin could not sleep that night. He lay inside his small tent at the edge of the excavation site, but his thoughts kept circling back to the strange door hidden beneath the sand. The humming sound, the sharp carvings, and the star-shaped lock all burned into his memory. He knew what he had seen was not ordinary, and he also knew it was only the beginning. At sunrise, Armin returned to the chamber with renewed determination. He carried tools, notebooks, and brushes, ready to study every inch of the markings. As he examined the carvings closely, he noticed a repeated symbol that looked like a shining star with rays spreading outward. The same symbol appeared near the lock, carved more deeply than the others. It seemed to hold special importance. He sat on the ground and began translating what little he could. The symbols were strange, but here and there he recognized pieces of Egyptian hieroglyphs mixed within them. The parts he could understand spoke of a gift from the heavens and a queen who guards the secret of the sky. The words made his heart pound faster. Cleopatra had not simply been protecting treasure. She had been protecting something far beyond normal riches. As Armin worked, he pulled out a small wooden box that had belonged to his grandfather. Inside was an old crown fragment, passed down through generations in his family. It was said to be part of a relic once linked to Cleopatra herself, though no one in his family ever proved it. The fragment had a small crystal piece fixed at the center, shaped like a shard of glass but glowing faintly in the sunlight. Armin lifted the crystal and held it up against the carvings on the wall. To his amazement, the crystal refracted the lantern light and projected a faint glow against the symbols. The shape seemed to align perfectly, as though the crystal was made for this place. His hands trembled as he stepped closer to the door and placed the crystal against the star-shaped lock. The lock pulsed faintly with light, and the humming sound grew louder. Armin's heart raced in fear and excitement. He quickly pulled the crystal back, his breath shaking. He realized what he held was not just a family relic. It was the key. He sat on the stone floor, overwhelmed. His grandfather's stories about Cleopatra guarding a secret had always been dismissed as fantasy, but now Armin understood. His family had been unknowingly keeping part of that secret alive for centuries. The crystal shard was the key of stars, created to open the hidden vault of Cleopatra's gold. Armin knew he could not rush. He spent the rest of the day studying the walls, searching for warnings or instructions. Among the carvings, he found one image that caught his attention. It showed a figure resembling Cleopatra, standing before a group of tall beings with elongated heads and glowing halos. They appeared to be giving her the crystal key, while behind them was carved a strange shape that resembled a ship or vessel descending from the sky. He traced the image slowly with his fingers, his thoughts spinning. Could it be true? Had Cleopatra met visitors not from this world? If so, what did they give her? And why was it hidden beneath the sands for so long? The desert wind howled outside, and Armin felt the weight of the mystery pressing on him. He had always dreamed of discovering something great, but now he wondered if he was ready. This was not just about history anymore. This was about knowledge that could change the future. That evening, as the sky darkened, Armin lit a fire near his tent and stared into the flames. He thought about the other archaeologists who had laughed at him for chasing legends. He thought about the treasure hunters who would stop at nothing to find riches. If they knew about the crystal key and the door, they would destroy everything for greed. He could not allow that to happen. Armin looked at the crystal in his hand, its faint glow flickering like a living star. He whispered softly, promising himself that he would uncover the truth carefully. If Cleopatra had trusted the secret to the future, then he must honor that trust. The desert night grew quiet, and only the fire cracked softly. Armin knew what he had to do. The key was in his hands, and the vault was waiting. He would return to the chamber at dawn and face whatever lay inside. For now, He placed the crystal back into the wooden box and held it close to his chest. The stars above glittered brightly, and Armin felt as though they were watching him, guiding him. Cleopatra's secret was no longer just a legend. It was real, and he was the one chosen to uncover it. He closed his eyes and let sleep finally take him, though deep in his heart, he knew the real journey was only about to begin. The morning sun painted the desert sky in shades of gold and red as Armin prepared himself for the greatest step of his life. He packed his tools, lantern, notebook, and most importantly, the crystal key. His hands shook slightly as he held the small wooden box, but his eyes burned with determination. He knew that once the key entered the lock, there would be no turning back. The journey back to the chamber felt longer than usual. Every grain of sand seemed to whisper secrets, and every gust of wind sounded like a warning. Still, Armin pressed forward, his heart steadying with each step. He was no longer just a seeker of ruins. He was a keeper of knowledge waiting to be revealed. When he reached the chamber, silence greeted him. The air inside felt heavier than before, almost charged with unseen energy. He placed his lantern down and walked straight toward the massive stone door. The star-shaped lock gleamed faintly in the dim light, as if it had been waiting for him. Armin opened the wooden box and lifted the crystal key. The shard glowed softly in his hand, pulsing in rhythm with the faint hum coming from the door. Taking a deep breath, he pressed the crystal into the lock. The chamber shook with a low vibration. Dust fell from the ceiling, and the symbols on the walls lit up in golden light, one after another, forming patterns across the stone. The humming grew louder, transforming into a deep, resonant tone that seemed to come from the earth itself. Armin stepped back, his lantern swaying as the massive door began to move. Slowly, with grinding force, the stone slab slid apart, revealing a dark passage beyond. The air that escaped was cool, carrying with it a strange metallic scent. Heart pounding, Armin lifted his lantern and entered. The passage was narrow, lined with walls of smooth stone that reflected the light faintly. Strange symbols glowed faintly along the sides, guiding his way deeper into the vault. The air felt alive, humming softly around him, as though invisible currents of power were flowing through the walls. At last, the passage opened into a vast chamber that made Armin freeze in awe. The ceiling was high and arched, glittering as if coated in gold. In the center stood rows of golden structures that looked like machines, though unlike any machine he had ever seen. Their surfaces were polished, glowing faintly with shifting patterns of light. Some resembled tall pillars, others were shaped like curved arches, and in the far end stood several large capsules that shimmered in the lantern's glow. Armin stepped forward slowly, his footsteps echoing in the hollow chamber. He felt as though he had stepped into a place not meant for his time, a place where the past and future had blended. His breath quickened as he approached one of the machines. It was covered in carvings similar to the door, but they shifted slowly, changing shape as though alive. He reached out and touched the surface. The machine responded instantly. Golden lines of light spread outward from his hand, running across the surface and lighting up the entire structure. A sudden voice filled the chamber, deep and resonant, speaking in a language he did not understand. The sound was not threatening, but commanding, as though announcing his arrival. Armin stumbled back in shock, nearly dropping his lantern. His heart pounded against his chest. He tried to calm himself, reminding his mind that Cleopatra herself must have once stood here. This vault was not just a tomb or a treasury. It was something much more. The voice shifted, repeating itself, but this time, words formed that Armin could understand. The tone became clear, echoing from the golden walls. Keeper identified. Access granted. Armin froze. The vault was recognizing him. The crystal key had marked him as the rightful heir to enter. He could hardly believe it. As the words faded, the golden machines around him stirred to life. Soft hums filled the chamber, lights brightened, and the capsules at the far end glowed with renewed brilliance. The ground beneath his feet trembled gently, not with danger, but with awakening. Armin stood in silence, overwhelmed by wonder and fear. He realized now that this place had been asleep for thousands of years, waiting for the one who carried the key. Cleopatra must have hidden it away to ensure the knowledge of these machines would not fall into the wrong hands. Slowly, Armin walked toward the glowing capsules. Inside the transparent surface, he saw objects floating gently in liquid light. They were not gold or jewels. They were tools, artifacts, and devices of unknown design, each glowing faintly with inner energy. Some looked like spheres, others like rods with markings, and one even resembled a crown made of pure light. Armin pressed his hand against the capsule's surface, and the object within shifted slightly, as if acknowledging his presence. A chill ran down his spine. This was far beyond anything he had imagined. Cleopatra's treasure was not wealth. It was technology, knowledge, and perhaps power meant to shape the destiny of humanity. The chamber grew quiet again, except for the steady hum of the machines. Armin realized he stood at the doorway of something that could change history forever. His heart was heavy, but his spirit burned with curiosity. He had awakened the vault, but he knew this was only the beginning. Somewhere deep within the glowing walls, he felt a presence, as though unseen eyes were watching. The vault was alive, and now it had chosen him. Armin stood in the golden chamber, frozen between fear and wonder. The machines hummed softly, the capsules glowed with strange light, and the air seemed alive with energy. He had thought the vault was only a resting place for treasure, but now he understood it was more than that. It was a place designed to awaken when the right person arrived. As he took another step forward, a sudden sound made him stop. The golden floor shifted slightly, and from hidden panels, shapes began to rise. At first, they looked like statues, tall and slender, carved with perfection. But as they rose higher, Armin saw their eyes glow faintly with golden fire. Slowly, their limbs moved, and their bodies straightened with mechanical grace. Armin's lantern shook in his trembling hand. These were not statues. They were guardians. There were 4 of them, each coated in shining golden plates that reflected the light of the chamber. Their faces were smooth, almost human, but without expressions. They held long staffs, carved with the same star symbols he had seen on the door and walls. As they stood, they moved in perfect unison, turning their glowing eyes toward him. Armin felt his knees weaken. He stepped back, ready to run, but then the guardians did not attack. Instead, one of them lowered its staff and placed it gently against the floor. A soft ringing sound filled the chamber, almost like a chime. Then a voice, calm and clear, echoed from the guardians. "You carry the key. You are recognized." Armin froze, his chest heaving. The guardians spoke, yet their mouths never moved. The sound seemed to flow directly into the chamber itself. He tried to steady his voice as he spoke. "Who are you? What is this place?" The guardians did not answer right away. Instead, golden lines of light spread across the floor, forming patterns like maps and symbols. The nearest guardian stepped forward, its tall frame towering over Armin, and raised its staff. At the tip, a beam of light projected an image into the air. Armin gasped. It was a vision of Cleopatra herself, standing tall in her royal robes, her crown shining under the desert sun. But she was not alone. Around her stood tall figures with elongated heads and glowing halos. They were the same beings Armin had seen carved into the walls earlier. The vision shifted, showing Cleopatra receiving the crystal key from the beings. She bowed her head with respect, then turned to hide the key beneath her crown. The scene then showed her walking into the chamber, placing her hands against the machines, and speaking words of promise. The golden guardians surrounded her as if swearing loyalty. The vision faded, and the guardian's voice returned. The Queen of Egypt was chosen. She guarded the gift of the stars. She left the key for her heirs. You are the one who carries it now. Armin's mouth went dry. The guardians were confirming what he had only guessed. Cleopatra had made a pact with visitors from the sky. She had been entrusted with their knowledge and technology. The so-called treasure was never about gold or jewels. It was about protecting something that could shape the destiny of mankind. He looked up at the guardians, his voice still unsteady. Why me? Why now? The guardian raised its staff again. The glowing lines on the floor shifted, forming a new pattern. This time, it showed stars in the sky, moving slowly as if marking the passage of time. The constellations changed until they matched the night sky Armin had seen the evening before. Then the voice spoke again. The time has come. The stars align as they did once before. The knowledge must be awakened. The keeper must prepare. Armin felt his heart race. The vault had been waiting for a specific moment, a time when the stars returned to their old position. And he, by chance or destiny, had been the one to arrive at that time with the key. The other guardians stepped closer, circling him, but their movements were not threatening. They lowered their staffs, and the glow in their eyes softened. Armin felt as though they were studying him, measuring his spirit. He swallowed hard and stood straight, trying to hide his fear. If Cleopatra trusted the secret to the future, then I will protect it too. Tell me what I must do. The chamber grew silent. Then, for the first time, the guardians bowed their heads slightly. It was a gesture of respect. The voice spoke once more, calm and steady. You are the keeper. The vault is yours to command. But beware. Others will come. They will not seek knowledge. They will seek only power. A chill ran through Armin's body. He thought of the greedy treasure hunters, the doubting scholars, and those who would use this technology for war. The guardians were warning him. The vault was both a gift and a burden. The machines behind him glowed brighter, and the capsules shimmered as though preparing to open. Armin tightened his grip on the lantern, his mind racing. He had uncovered the greatest secret of the ancient world, but he also realized he was stepping into a responsibility far greater than himself. The golden guardians stood tall, their glowing eyes watching him, as though ready to follow his command. For the first time in his life, Armin did not feel like just an archaeologist. He felt like a protector, standing where Cleopatra once stood, chosen to guard the legacy of the stars. And in the silence of the chamber, he made a vow. He would not let this secret fall into the wrong hands. The golden chamber was silent except for the soft hum of the machines. Armin stood in the center, surrounded by the guardians who glowed faintly like living statues. His heart was heavy, but his eyes were full of determination. He wanted to know everything. He wanted to understand why Cleopatra, the great queen of Egypt, had hidden such a powerful secret beneath the desert sands. The nearest guardian raised its staff. The golden lines on the floor shifted again, spreading outward like rivers of light until the entire chamber glowed. Slowly, the air shimmered, and another vision formed before Armin's eyes. He saw Cleopatra standing in her royal palace. The marble pillars shone in the sunlight, and her crown sparkled on her head. She looked strong, proud, and full of wisdom. But then, from the skies above, a great light descended. It was not the sun. It was a vessel of shining silver and gold, larger than any ship made by men of her time. Tall beings stepped out of the vessel. Their bodies glowed faintly, and their faces were hidden beneath strange golden masks. They stood before Cleopatra, and though they did not speak with their mouths, their voices filled the air. Armin watched as Cleopatra listened to them. The vision showed her bowing slightly, not in weakness but in respect. The beings held out their hands, and in them was the crystal key. Cleopatra accepted it, her face calm but serious. Then the vision changed. He saw Cleopatra walking with the beings through secret tunnels beneath her palace. They showed her how to awaken the machines, how to hide them, and how to seal them away. The guardians bowed before her, pledging to protect the vault as long as time allowed. Finally, the vision showed Cleopatra standing before the sealed door. She pressed her hand against it and spoke words of promise. Her voice rang clear in the chamber. "I will guard this gift. I will not allow it to fall into the hands of those who desire only power. When the stars return to their place, the one who holds the key shall awaken it again. May they be wise, may they be strong." The vision ended, and the light slowly faded from the chamber. Armin stood still, his chest heavy with emotion. Cleopatra had not been remembered only as a queen of beauty or politics. She had been chosen as a guardian of something greater than her own kingdom. She had protected the knowledge of the stars, even when it could have given her endless power. The guardian's voice filled the chamber again. She chose the path of sacrifice. Wealth, armies, and thrones fade with time. But knowledge endures. She gave her people a chance to rise when the world was ready. Armin lowered his lantern, his mind racing. History had always painted Cleopatra as a ruler who fought for power against Rome, but now he saw her in a new light. She had known secrets no one else could imagine. She had held in her hands the ability to change the world, yet she chose patience and trust in the future. He whispered to himself, almost in awe. She trusted us. She trusted the future. The guardians stepped closer, their golden eyes steady. One of them spoke again. "Now you are the keeper. The queen's choice passes to you. Will you protect it, or will you fall as others have fallen?" Armin felt the weight of the question pressing against his heart. He thought of the world outside, full of greed and conflict. He thought of the men who had mocked him for chasing legends, and of those who would use such power for war. For a moment, doubt filled him. He was only one man. How could he protect something so great? But then he remembered Cleopatra's promise. She had stood alone, too, surrounded by powerful enemies, yet she had chosen to protect the vault. If she could do it in her time, then he could do it in his. "I will protect it," Armin said firmly. His voice no longer trembled. "I will not let this fall into the wrong hands." The guardians lowered their staffs. A faint golden light wrapped around Armin, warm and steady, as though the vault itself accepted his promise. The hum of the machines grew softer, almost like a sigh of relief. Armin turned his eyes back to the capsules. The artifacts inside glowed brighter, waiting for him. They were not just objects. They were tools of knowledge, gifts left for a future where humanity could stand as equals among the stars. Cleopatra had hidden them not for wealth, but for destiny. He walked closer and placed his hand gently on the glass surface of one capsule. A faint image appeared in his mind, visions of the stars, great paths of light stretching across the heavens, gateways to distant worlds. His heart raced, but he steadied himself. This was what Cleopatra had preserved. This was humanity's legacy. The chamber grew still again. The guardians remained silent, but their glowing eyes followed him. Armin knew his life had changed forever. He was no longer just an archaeologist searching for history. He was now a protector of the greatest secret the ancient world had ever kept. And as he stood beneath the golden ceiling, surrounded by machines from the stars, he understood the truth. Cleopatra's gold was not treasure meant to be spent. It was knowledge meant to guide the future. Armin left the chamber the next morning with the crystal key secured tightly in his bag. The memory of Cleopatra's vision and the guardian's words weighed heavily on him. He walked across the desert, his boots sinking into the hot sand, but his mind was far away. He now understood the truth of the vault. It was not meant to enrich kings or rulers. It was meant to prepare humanity for something greater. But as he reached his camp, Armin noticed something unusual. His tent had been disturbed. The ropes were loose, and his belongings were scattered across the sand. His heart sank. Someone had been there. He dropped his bag and ran forward, searching through the mess. His notebooks were gone. The sketches of the symbols, the drawings of the lock, and even the old book of his grandfather had been taken. Armin's breath grew heavy. He was not alone anymore. Someone had followed him. That evening, while sitting near the fire, Armin's fears came true. In the distance, he saw the faint glow of torches moving across the dunes. A group of men was approaching, their shadows long and sharp in the night. Treasure hunters. He had seen them before in Cairo, men who cared nothing for history and only chased gold. Somehow, they had tracked him to the desert. Armin quickly put out his fire and crouched low, clutching the crystal key. His heart pounded as the men drew closer. Their voices carried through the air. "He found something," one of them said. The scholar was right. The fool actually uncovered the queen's vault. Another voice laughed. "Then it is ours now. Cleopatra's gold belongs to those strong enough to take it." Armin gritted his teeth. These men had no idea what they were walking into. They thought they would find chests of jewels and coins, but what lay beneath the sands was far greater and far more dangerous. If they disturbed the vault, the guardians would not stay silent. He waited until the men passed his camp, then followed them quietly, staying low in the shadows. They moved directly toward the hidden chamber, guided perhaps by his stolen notes. Armin's stomach twisted with dread. He had to stop them, but he was only one man. By the time they reached the chamber, the treasure hunters had already lit their lanterns and squeezed inside. Armin followed behind, his footsteps silent. He watched as they entered the great hall of the vault. Their eyes widened in greed when they saw the golden machines and glowing capsules. "By the gods," one of them whispered. "Look at this. Riches beyond measure." Another laughed. "We will be kings." They rushed forward, touching the machines, prying at the capsules, and trying to break pieces of the golden structures. The hum of the chamber grew louder, and the floor trembled. Armin's blood ran cold. They were waking the defenses. "Stop!" Armin shouted, stepping into the chamber. His voice echoed through the golden hall. The men turned in surprise. "You," one of them sneered. "The scholar. You hid this from us." "You don't understand," Armin said firmly. "This is not treasure for you to steal. It is knowledge. It is dangerous if you try to take it by force." The leader of the group laughed and pulled a tool from his belt, slamming it against one of the capsules. The golden surface cracked slightly, and the machines roared to life. The guardians rose from their hidden panels, their eyes burning with golden fire. The treasure hunters froze in shock. The guardians stepped forward, staffs glowing, their voices filling the chamber. "Intruders detected. Protection protocol active." Armin shouted over the noise. "Stop touching the machines. They will destroy you if you do not stop." But greed blinded the men. One tried to pry open a capsule, while another swung his tool at a guardian. The chamber shook violently, and beams of golden light shot across the room, striking the ground near the intruders. The hunters panicked, dropping their tools, but the guardians advanced with steady steps. Armin rushed forward, raising his hands. "Wait. They do not understand. Please, give me a chance." The guardians paused, their glowing eyes turning toward him. The leader of the hunters growled. "You're with them. You planned this. You want the treasure for yourself." Armin shook his head. "There is no treasure here. Cleopatra did not hide gold. She hid knowledge. And if you do not leave, none of us will survive." The chamber trembled again, the machines humming louder, the capsules glowing brighter. The guardians were seconds away from unleashing their full defense. Armin realized he had only one choice. He stepped between the hunters and the guardians, holding up the crystal key high above his head. The golden light spread across the chamber, and the guardians froze. The hum softened. The voice of the vault filled the air. Keeper present. Awaiting command. Armin's heart pounded. He knew the vault was asking him to decide. Would he allow the guardians to destroy the intruders, or would he spare them? He looked at the terrified faces of the hunters, their greed now replaced with fear. Taking a deep breath, Armin made his choice. Do not destroy them. Expel them. Seal the vault. The guardians bowed their heads, and beams of light surged across the chamber. The hunters were pushed back by invisible force, stumbling and falling as they were carried out of the passage. The massive stone door began to close, shaking the ground with its weight. Armin stood in silence as the door sealed once more. The chamber grew calm, the machines returning to their soft hum. He lowered the crystal key, his hands trembling. The vault had listened to him. The responsibility was truly his now. Armin stood in the golden chamber long after the stone door sealed shut. The silence pressed against his ears, broken only by the steady hum of the machines. His hands still trembled from holding the crystal key. He had stopped the guardians from destroying the intruders, but the weight of what had just happened lingered in his chest. The guardians slowly lowered their staffs and returned to their resting places along the walls. Their glowing eyes dimmed, but one of them remained standing. It looked at Armin, as if waiting. You chose mercy, the guardian said in a calm, echoing voice. The queen believed only a true keeper would protect both the vault and human life. You have passed the trial. Armin swallowed hard. Passed the trial? What does that mean? The guardian extended its hand. It means the final secret of the vault may now be revealed. Armin followed as the guardian walked deeper into the hall. At the far end, a golden archway shimmered with faint light. Armin had not noticed it before, hidden behind layers of carvings. The guardian touched the archway with its staff, and the surface rippled like water. Step forward, keeper, the guardian said. Armin hesitated for a moment, then took a deep breath and stepped through. He entered a new chamber, smaller than the others but brighter. Golden walls reflected the light of a floating sphere at the center. Inside the sphere was a map, glowing with shifting stars and strange symbols. Armin's eyes widened in awe. It was not a map of Egypt. It was a map of the stars. This is the queen's final gift, the guardian explained. Cleopatra did not only preserve her empire's wisdom. She preserved knowledge given to her by those who came from beyond the skies. Armin's heart raced. He thought of the strange technology, the crystal key, and the visions of Cleopatra speaking as if she knew him. It all made sense now. The vault was not only Egyptian. It was something greater, something touched by beings far beyond Earth. Why me? Armin asked quietly. Why am I the one chosen to see this? The guardian's golden eyes shone brighter. Because you sought truth, not power. Because you chose mercy over greed. The vault responds not to wealth or strength, but to the heart. The floating sphere shifted, revealing lines of text in ancient Egyptian. Armin stepped closer and read slowly. His grandfather's teachings helped him understand. The words spoke of a time when Earth might face trials beyond its strength, and when that time came, the keeper of the vault would guide humanity with the knowledge preserved here. Armin touched the sphere, and images flashed before his eyes. Great ships sailing through the stars. Human cities rising with new light. And at the center of it all, the vault, a bridge between the past and the future. When the vision ended, Armin lowered his hand. He felt a strange calm. For years he had searched for treasure, for the secret his grandfather spoke of. Now he understood. It was never about gold. It was about hope. The guardian's voice broke the silence. You may take the crystal key. With it, you alone can open the vault again. Guard it well. Armin nodded. I will protect it. The guardian bowed and stepped back into the wall, merging once more with the golden carvings. The chamber dimmed, and the sphere folded into itself until nothing remained but smooth stone. Armin stood alone. He held the crystal key against his chest and closed his eyes. His journey had changed him forever. When he left the vault, the desert greeted him with burning sunlight. He looked around and saw no sign of the treasure hunters. The wind had already covered their tracks with shifting sand. Only silence remained. Armin returned to his camp and packed his few belongings. His notebooks were gone, but he no longer needed them. The knowledge now lived within him. He gazed once more at the horizon, where the sand met the sky. That night, he sat by a small fire under the stars. The same stars that had glowed inside the vault seemed brighter now, as if they were watching him. Armin felt a sense of peace. His grandfather's words echoed in his mind. The greatest treasure is not gold, but what you leave for the world. He smiled faintly. For the first time in his life, Armin was no longer searching. He had found his purpose. The vault would remain hidden, waiting for the day humanity was ready. Until then, Armin would live as its silent guardian, carrying the secret in his heart. He was only one man, but he now carried the hope of both past and future. As the desert wind blew softly around him, Armin whispered to himself, "Cleopatra's legacy will live on. And when the time comes, the world will know." He looked at the stars once more, and for the first time, he did not feel small. He felt connected to something far greater than himself. The fire crackled, the sands shifted, and the vault of Cleopatra's gold remained hidden beneath the earth, safe and waiting for its true purpose to be fulfilled.